Hi, today I'm going to talk about how I came to decide whether I want an action camera or a 360 camera for my first camera for the purpose of motovlogging. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not a crazy rich Asian. I can't afford to buy multiple devices at one time, so I had to decide and save up for one. I might have both cameras later on, but I have to choose which will be my first camera. So first of all, you know that an action camera is only able to take a video in one direction. And the 360 camera, as the name suggests, is able to take the video all around. If I were to use an action camera, I can't use it for really fun shots like being in a parking lot like this one and just going around and round in circles and taking an all-round footage. But if I were to have a 360 camera, although it's trickier to use, there are a lot more settings that you have to figure out. I could probably take it with me when I'm on vacation, put it on a selfie stick, run around, put it on a really long selfie stick and pretend it's a drone. It could be something that I would probably do. And typically for us in Singapore, we don't own multiple vehicles at any one time. We might own one instead of, let's say, a cruiser, a sports bike, and a street bike. Those are for the really privileged. A sports bike like this has these fairings, like engine covers, front covers. It's also built for aerodynamics. I do not plan on owning this motorcycle for very long. I might change to a different model. And so whatever camera I choose has to be suitable to be placed on that new motorcycle. You could also mount your camera to your helmet like this. This is the Teleson helmet chin mount. Technically not mount for the motorcycle itself, but you could still use it for a really good POV shot. What's going to happen if you don't use a full-face helmet like this? You probably have a half-face or an open-face helmet. There are other ways that you can mount your cameras to your helmet, but I'm not going to go through with them over here. I generally use a full-face helmet, and it's the easiest because as I take my helmet with me to go into a cafe or something or go to work, the camera comes along with me. Let's walk around the motorcycle to see where I could possibly mount a camera. Over here, as you can see, this is the front of the motorcycle, side and rear. And you generally don't mount anything to the front of the motorcycle like this, so that's out of the question. So what are your options? Coming over to the front of the motorcycle, you have this area here where the handlebars are. You have your actual handle, you have your throttle and the bar ends. You can place a couple of mounts over here. There's also the rear view mirrors. And the windshield is also a place where you can place a mount. There's one more area over here. This is the tank fuel cap. Coming over to the back, we have this handle over here. It's really sturdy. That's solid. And for a Hayabusa, you have these over here. What are they? So you could remove these. You can take them off if you want. But the general idea is that you use these to hook. So if you had cargo here and you had a bungee cord, okay, you could tie the bungee cord to this and it will hook in place really snugly. And what else do we have? And there's the popular foot pegs area. Okay. First up, we have the windshield over here. You could clip something onto the windshield. You could also mount something with an adhesive to the front of the windshield where your 360 camera goes. However, the Hayabusa windscreen is not exactly cheap, and I don't really like to have anything sticky stuck to my bike unless it's something really functional. But you'll notice that if you place the camera here and it points forward, you're not going to really get a POV shot. You will, however, get a shot of the vehicles in front, which is great. So it can be used as a dash cam in that sense. But I did not want to place anything on the windscreen because that's a really expensive replacement. Come over here, we have my rear view mirrors. So these aren't original, but the original Hayabusa rear view mirrors are similar, that they have a stem. But again, if you place a camera here, you're just really going to get a view of the vehicles in front, and you're going to get a view of yourself, but also you're going to get a view of your own windscreen. Again, that's not really a POV shot. That's not what I want. Coming over here, you have your handlebars. There's nothing that you can place over here, because once you put anything tall, if it's a camera that you were required to see the front where the road is, it's just going to knock into the windscreen, and you don't want that to happen. That is because a bike with a fairing has a fixed windscreen like this. On some other motorcycles, the windscreen and the handlebars move along together. You have your bar ends. You could open this up, unscrew it, and then you can place a mount over here. Now that's great. Again, not a perfect POV shot, because you are going to get a view of yourself. You'll get a little bit of the road in front and your windscreen, and you're going to get a view of your mirror. Also, if you're doing a lot of tight turns, which you really shouldn't be, then that camera is going to move around a lot because you're moving your handlebars. Over here in Singapore, we have to have this device called the OBU, or onboard unit. Some people place them on the tank itself. That could be an option, so you can take this off. You won't have this clutter. But a lot of people also have a phone mount like this. If you already know where you're going, you probably don't need a phone mount. However, if you do place a camera mount, these are just ball mounts over here. If you do place a camera mount, they would have to clear the windscreen in order to see the road in front. However, that's still very risky, and it could also serve as a minor spear, just in case you get into an accident and the camera spears into your chest. Not likely to happen, but still a very expensive incident. Here you have the fuel cap. Okay, so there are mounts that you can take off these bolts and place a mount on top and use a longer bolt. And that mount basically has a ball mount attached to it, so you could place a camera here. Again, it needs to be tall enough to clear the windscreen to see the road ahead. However, this being a sports bike, you typically sit leaning forward. If you're on the highways and you're going at higher speeds, you might need to duck. You can't really do that if you have a camera in your face. This mount right here might be more suitable for a motorcycle with an upright position. You have the passenger foot peg, which is a really popular spot for a mount. And then you attach it to a selfie stick and you attach your camera there. But again, that is not a POV shot. You get a pretty cool shot of yourself riding your motorcycle and a shot of the vehicles at the back, as well as the rest of the scenery. You could get creative and remove these and place replacement bolts, which you can then again get creative and attach a mount over here. So the mount could possibly go up like this and have a view of the front over your shoulder as you ride. However, you do need to be careful where you swing your leg over, because your leg is just going to knock onto the mount and the selfie stick. This handlebar here for the Hayabusa is pretty promising. Okay, it's really sturdy, so you could have a clamp and then you mount your selfie stick and then your camera to the back and you get a pretty nice view. But again, that is not really a POV shot. Things remain true for the other side. You have these stays over here that you can remove and replace with bolts. You also have the passenger foot peg down below. I'm really picky, really fussy. I like to make sure that everything's done correctly. Although sometimes they don't end up as perfect as I want them to be. There is another way that I can mount my camera onto myself in order to get that POV shot. So I found this scrap piece of metal and I got a workshop to round out the edges. Here I am placing that piece of... Here I am putting my hand inside my jacket and reaching for the breastplate protector. Over here, this is where I plan to stick that steel plate. Check out its magnet properties. That looks about right, and I'll just use a lot of duct tape. There we go. Go around a couple of times, avoiding the hook and loop sections. Almost done. Let's test. Yep, still sticks, magnet sticks just fine. Let me put the breastplate back into the jacket. Alright, make sure it's in place. Now it's not moving around. Let's place the magnet on top, give it a test. Yep, it sticks to the jacket perfectly. Let's give it a try. So any camera I place would be right about there. And check it out. Camera is on the jacket stuck using magnets. Who says you have to mount it onto your motorcycle? Do remember here that if you place a 360 camera on yourself and you have that POV shot, you're going to be only having one view, which is facing forward, whereas the camera that's facing rearward is going to be facing you, and you probably just get a shot of your chest or your chin or your nose, which isn't particularly fun. By the time that you're watching this video, I would have decided to go for a 360 camera, because a 360 camera would allow me, one, the flexibility of recording 360 videos, which although is harder to edit, but would allow me to have a little bit more fun. I can then also go for a nice gentle cruise or a gentle drive around somewhere, mount the camera onto another part of the motorcycle and get a different perspective for a cooler shot. What you do with your camera is up to you. These are just my options for my motorcycle.